Okay, so I made a video about this the other day about former Cowboys wide receiver Dez Bryant and his tweet calling out Malika Andrews and her coverage of the Josh Giddey investigation. For some background, Malika has never really ever bit her tongue whenever it comes to criticizing black athletes. Just a few examples are the Ime Udoka, Brandon Miller, Joe Mazzulla, and Adrian Payne stories where Malika would always criticize these black athletes much harsher under the microscope. In regards to Josh Giddey, it's been alleged via unverified Twitter accounts that the OKC guard had relations with a minor. Josh is 21 years old, and there were videos and pics surfacing on social media of him hinting at the fact that he and the young female had a sexual relationship. So after Malika Andrews and ESPN were quiet on this particular story until almost a week later, Dez tweeted this out. Malika Andrews, you went out of your way to crucify Brandon Miller on draft day over something he didn't even do. Why haven't you said nothing about Josh Giddey? I advise you not to make this a black or white thing. Your parents really raised you wrong, and just because you went to a private school don't make you any better. You peel, and I know you're kind. You're just a puppet. I don't know how a former or current NBA player could sit across from you and look at you with some kind of respect. So yesterday, Stephen A. Smith finally decided to chime in on this tweet and listen to what he had to say.
You see, without trying to get too involved in it, I feel compelled to get involved because I think that a lot of people are missing the issue involving Josh Giddey to begin with. Josh Giddey is being investigated for allegedly messing with an underage girl. We don't know the facts. And because we don't know the facts and we represent a network, we have to make sure I's are dotted and T's are crossed before we provide commentary to that. The investigation is ongoing by the NBA. The Oklahoma City Thunder refuses to comment on it. Josh Giddey refuses to comment on it. And as a result, all we can keep doing is reminding everybody the brother being investigated. He's from Australia. He's being investigated for messing with an underage girl. That's problematic. And the NBA is investigating because next thing you know, they may take some heat because people may be asking them, what are you going to do about it? If this was the National Football League, chances are he would be put on a commissioner's exempt list where he wouldn't be allowed to play until the investigation was complete. So getting on Malika Andrews about this, I believe, is off kilter. And it's a bit extreme. Bringing up her parents, her upbringing, some private school education. Come on, Dez. What if she brought up your stuff? Come on, bro. It's not necessary. But we got folks coming at her all the time with death threats and other threats and all of this stuff. Why? Why? Let's talk about Brandon Miller for a second. I wish this brother nothing but the best. He can play, by the way. Was a star at Alabama last year. No problem with that. He was the number 2 overall pick on draft night in the National Basketball Association. He was going to be the number 2 pick of the Charlotte Hornets. The city of Charlotte is considered the Bible Belt. What was his crime? There was no crime because the police in Alabama said they had nothing to arrest him on. But what was later learned is that last year sometime, in February before February, he drove a car that had a gun in it that his teammate ultimately got out of the back seat, handed to somebody else, and they ended up killing a 23-year-old young lady who is the mother of a 5-year-old child. And those two individuals, his teammate, Brandon Miller's teammate, and the person that he handed the gun to, were arrested and indicted on capital murder charges. When Brandon Miller showed up in South Carolina, you'd have thought he was Hillary Clinton. They were screaming, lock him up, lock him up, lock him up. How in God's name does Malika Andrews not ask that question on draft night? She had to. I'm telling you, me or any other reporter that was in that situation has an obligation to ask a team, an NBA official, or somebody about that question. There's no wiggle room around it. If she hadn't asked that question, the bosses would have been wondering why she had that job. If I was sitting in her chair and I didn't ask that question, since after all he was the number 2 overall pick and he was getting drafted and all of this residue was just months removed, I would have been asked, why do I have my job? That goes for any journalist. So we have to take that into consideration. It's not about protecting Malika Andrews. It's about protecting the industry. It's about understanding and making you understand what comes along with this job. You keep thinking we have choices. We don't always have choices. You have to ask those questions. Now, there does come a point in time where you can stop. You don't have to bring up stuff from years earlier. That's true.
Okay, so Stephen A. Smith made it clear he is defending his colleague here. He said Malika is merely doing her job reporting and giving the audience full disclosure. And he said the same went for the Brandon Miller incident when Malika brought up his name tied to the murder investigation. But then at the end, he completely glossed over the fact she brought up Adrian Payne's alleged essay incident from 2012 when reporting on his death. At the end of that clip I played you, all Stephen A. Smith said was that she didn't have to bring up old stuff from years earlier. But that's one of the things fans are all upset about. In the reporting of Adrian Payne's murder, why even bother bringing up allegations from over 10 years ago? It kind of reminds me of the same shit Gayle King did with Kobe Bryant's death when she talked about his rape case from almost 20 years ago. I don't get it. It really has nothing to do with the story here about the guy's murder. It just feels like they're trying to unfairly demonize these black athletes and paint them in a certain way to the audience. If this was the norm for reporting for everyone else, okay then fine. We'll list off all the negative shit people have done in their obituaries too. On top of that, these were mere allegations against Adrian Payne, so did Malika have evidence to prove otherwise? Stephen A. excused her of not reporting on Josh Giddey because of the lack of evidence. He talked about not knowing the facts of the case with the underage girl and that they work for a network. So again, what facts did they have in the Adrian Payne essay incident or even Brandon Miller's involvement in a murder? Anyways, do you all notice the double standard here? Okay, so a lot of people on Twitter brought up other incidents where ESPN reported on shit they had no facts about. For instance, one guy responded to Stephen A's post tweeting, "Y'all didn't have no facts about Manti Te'o but were quick to ruin him during his senior season." Another person wrote, "Y'all had all the facts with Deshaun Watson because last time I checked, he wasn't convicted either. We're using this is too serious, so let the investigation play out card." Yeah, so pretty interesting points people are bringing up here on Twitter. However, I think this tweet here perfectly encapsulates why the black community has such disdain for Malika Andrews. The tweet read, "In this particular situation, it's not talking about the Josh Giddey situation. The problem that many people have with Malika Andrews is the fact that anytime stuff like this comes up, whether it be a scandal or an ongoing investigation, a criminal investigation on a black athlete, she will go through every single detail, bring up every fact, make it the topic of her show without fail. People have an issue with the fact that this is a white male athlete, that she is not doing the same journalism that she likes to call it, not going through his business and putting everything out like she would do for a black athlete. That's why people have a problem with her. It's not even just regular fans, even athletes have a problem with the way she asks her questions towards them. It's almost just a straight bias if you just want to put it out there towards everybody of color that she reports on. The fact that ESPN continues to let her get away with that needs to be questioned. I don't know whether she's on contract still or what, but I know they see it year after year, yet she's steady allowed to get away with it. That's what people have a problem with. Okay, so this tweet was pretty much spot on with my assessment on this issue. People just don't like how she doesn't have the same energy when it comes to her own people. It's kind of like the Jason Whitlock situation, but he just seems to way overdo it in my opinion. Anyways, what do y'all think?